When I came home after the first night of my Social Foundations and Cultural Diversity and Urban Education course, I was freaking out. I originally recorded a video of myself and my reactions, but due to profanity and length, I decided to spare you. The sum of it was my worry of having to deconstruct myself throughout the course via readings and class discussions. I was worried about finding out that despite my upbringing in a very urban area, I latched on to the idea of white privilege. I worried that I wouldn't want to let it go because it has made life easier. But I thought after that first class, while trying to deconstruct what we learned and deconstruct myself, how was I, someone who went to inner city schools where most students were on free or reduced lunch and were Black, Native American, Somalian, or Hispanic, how was I exposed to white privilege? How was I, someone who grew up in an eclectic loving family? How was I, someone who was exposed to poverty, wealth, music, dance, success, failure, and lots of ethnic food, exposed to white privilege? How was I exposed to so much white privilege, and how did I pick it up and live with it successfully for my whole life? I think the best way to show how the course has helped me grow and teach me about myself in a culturally diverse manner is by deconstructing me. I'm white, I'm female, I am 24 years old. I have an inner city education from Ann Sullivan and South High School. I have a BS in Human Physiology and Development from a public school, the University of Minnesota. Go Gophers! I love to eat Persian food. I literally do not stop listening to jazz music, and I wish I knew flamenco dance. First, I want to start with the deconstruction of my heart. No, not the anatomical heart. I want to talk about my metaphorical heart, my heart that has feelings. My heart loves so many things. My mom, who supported my entire family. My dad, who blessed me with creativity as he carries out his passion as a flamenco and Brazilian guitarist. My little sister, my modern dance, limestone sculpting, family physician, and everything in between family. My heart loves the freedom my parents gave me to wander Minneapolis as I pleased. My heart loves how I befriended everyone and everything the Twin Cities had to offer. So how could my heart, being so open and loving, be exposed to white privilege and racism? So why is knowing my heart so important in being an anti-racist who's white and slowly breaking down her own whiteness? It didn't hit me until about the 5th week of class when we read Bell Hook's Teaching Community, A Pedagogy of Hope. The point I really took away from Hooks was that people chose their path on racism. Although it can change when one is older, as we are all learning and doing in class, typically being an anti-racist or a racist occurs at a very young age. When I started going to school, my parents enrolled me in a public school that supported the influx of Somalians escaping Africa who found solace in Minnesota. The school was aimed at incorporating their culture into our education and allowing them, parents and students, to feel safe. It was also a deaf and hard of hearing school where each student took 5 to 8 years of American Sign Language. I believe because we were taught about other cultures at such a young age, I was able to choose acceptance of all. However, as an adult, when racial, sexist, homophobic, classist humor is so prevalent in everyday life, I feel like I regressed from the path I chose at an elementary age. Next, let's deconstruct my eyes, how I see, and what I choose to see. Before the first class, the one where I freaked out because I didn't realize how much privilege I had in life due to my skin, I want to say I viewed people equally and I judged them based solely on their own merits. I do know, however, I generalized. I generalized populations when walking downtown, when going to work, and when talking with friends. I generalized race, gender, sex, and so much more. That first class was eye-opening as I learned about my white privilege, and after learning it, I felt immediate white guilt. McIntosh's article, White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, brought it to light, not just for me, but for many of my classroom peers. proving its stunning effect as an article. In class, we discussed the importance of the article as it clearly made every classmate feel something new. For me, it brought about the great question, what do I do about privilege? After that class, and still 8 weeks later, I tried to utilize my ideas to stop my white privilege. I need to be conscious of why I think certain ways about other people. I need to give up the dominant narrative as it makes things unequal. And we need to always be talking about white privilege as roommates, as friends, as colleagues, and certainly to our future students. We need to raise the next generation to view diversity positively, and in order to do this, as Dr. Mateus states, we need to talk about it. We need to be uncomfortable and find comfort in the discomfort. That implies that growth is happening, and that's a beautiful thing. Next, the deconstruction of my words, my mouth, my lips, my teeth, and my tongue. It's been a big mouth since a young age, and despite having what I considered to be a well-rounded childhood, I still had some whiteness in me because while reading Bonilla Silva, I immediately identified with the description of cultural racism, or the quote-unquote, they don't have it all together racism. I truly try to make judgments upon people based on facts that I know about them, but somewhere along the way, I began to make generalizations about race. I stereotype people. However, generalizing and stereotyping are different. I would occasionally think Asians are good at math, Hispanics are lazy, and so on, but my generalizing was based on personal experience. I met many great mothers who were white, so white became equated with love. Many of the Hispanic population I teach come from large families. Hispanic became equated with family. I used my brief interactions with people of a different race and biology to presume inequality as opposed to looking at their history of oppression. How many people are marginalized because of their skin color and therefore don't allow them success in education or employment? As soon as my racism was defined for me, my problems became real, but the solutions also became real and didn't seem so far away. Now, before jumping to conclusions that someone isn't successful because they are lazy, I think about their life. What hardships have they faced when they were young, a teenager, an adult? Is this just a bad day? Am I viewing their behavior as rude, or does their culture perceive it as being polite? Now, I want to deconstruct my behavior, and my behavior changed throughout the course. Prior to this class, I viewed myself as a self-advocate. I could speak up for me most of the time, and more often than not, I'm persuasive enough to accomplish my goals, such as writing an essay for admittance into the Urban Community Teacher Education Program. However, I was never good at advocating for others. This did start to change when I began working in a severe special needs classroom for the Adams 12 district, and I needed to relay the needs of my students to other teachers, and it really began to change after I read We Could Shape It by Kiang. The article was about empowering students, especially those of Asian Pacific descent. Give them resources that other students have had for years. Show them social support, affirmation that they are part of the community, and empower them and all of your other students to do great things. In the 90s, when the population of school-aged Asian Pacific Americans began doubling, they faced a lot of anti-immigrant hostility and had trouble finding solace in the education system, as many teachers and administrators had no similarity in their racial, ethnic, cultural, or linguistic background. Asian Pacific students became burdened by their stereotyping. They had no resources and they were insulted by others. They had nobody to go to for support, and they couldn't have their voices and concerns heard. Counselors, administrators, teachers, and other students put Asian Pacific American students by the wayside, leaving them lost in school and at home. I cannot fathom leaving students to suffer. This article made it acutely aware that when I began teaching, I am not just an adult and an educator, but I am an advocate. If I don't step up to the plate and help students who are suffering harassment in school, who will? Last, I want to analyze the root of racism by deconstructing something so obvious, something painful to others, and something that has made my life easier: my skin color. I'm white. I used to be pasty white when I lived in Minnesota, as I didn't see the sun for 6 months, but now that I've been in Denver and a mile closer to the sun for almost a year, my skin has changed. I'm a bit more tan. And whenever I go back home to Minneapolis, especially in the winter months, my friends actually say they're jealous of my tan skin. Why is skin color so important and such a talking point? This question still comes often in my mind. Why is being white beautiful? Why is being white but slightly tan even more beautiful? I'm still not able to deconstruct this thought. I became even more confused with this question in class when we listened to a song, The Invisible Backpacker of Privilege by Big Cats featuring Chance. Chance and I grew up together. We rode the same bus, we came from the same neighborhood, we went to the same school, we shared some of the same friends, we ate the same places, we listened to the same music, we supported the same musicians, and we went to the same shows, and yet we were so different. I am white. He is Native American and Asian, and in his song he raps about how he's been marginalized in the Minnesota music community and in the city of Minneapolis because of the color of his skin. He's had the cops called on him, he's been profiled, he's been bullied, and me? I've had none of these experiences. We are so similar and yet so different. And why? Because of the pigment difference in our skin, the shape of our eyes, and the build of our bodies.
Society sees, they say I'm to believe. We post racial, but still I feel confined by police. This dude called the cops on my crib the other night, saying that I robbed his wife. Or well, some dude that wasn't white, maybe native, maybe Asian. Either way, 3 squad cars hit my crib at 3 a.m. And no, white boy, in no way is that your fault. You may hate pigs and think that profiling is awful, but understand that you would not be in that position just for smoking on your porch with your particular pigment. You got the privilege of not having to deal with your race, while my relatives are off putting bleach on their face. I used to wish I was white, but I'm disgusted by skin creams. I was bullied and crying without knowing what chink means.
Racism, sexism, classism, ageism, heteronormativity, the dominant narrative, white privilege, white guilt, terms I have heard before, but never in this light. One can learn as much as possible about these terms, but until you know how they impact you, they are seemingly worthless. In order to become a better, more aware, and more knowledgeable person regarding these topics, I needed to deconstruct myself, and then I needed to construct myself all over again. Everyone has something special to offer, and as future urban educators and advocates, we need to remember this. We need to teach uncomfortable topics and find comfort in that. It will make us, our schools, our students, and the future generation better, and I find comfort in that.
I could sing it to you. Oh, 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 mostly I'm silent, silent, la 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 la. Never think of the right words to say when I kiss you. I feel 1,000